Zhou Lin crossed over and became a member of the Military Statistics Bureau. And obtained a system. You killed one Japanese soldier. Get a reward. The reward is the deceased's technical expertise. Basic marksmanship, 10 shots and 50 rings. Basic boxing technique, each punch has an impact force of 50 kilograms. Please choose one to add to your technical expertise. Please choose. Zhou Lin. I choose 1, basic marksmanship. Congratulations on upgrading your marksmanship. You are now a beginner in marksmanship. Keywords of the novel. King of Agents. I can upgrade infinitely without pop-ups. King of Agents. I can upgrade infinitely. Download the full text. King of Agents. I can upgrade infinitely. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Upgrading the system. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1. Upgrading the system. Bang. A bullet flew past Zhou Lin's ear. With a gust of strong wind. Zhou Lin was startled and fell to the ground. He saw a person lying on the ground, whose face was covered in blood. Is this filming? Why didn't you see the camera? Just when Zhou Lin couldn't figure it out, a pile of information appeared in his mind. So Zhou Lin has traveled through. A college student from the 1920s on Earth actually traveled to a parallel world. This person is themselves in a parallel world. Also known as Zhou Lin. I am 22 years old and graduated from Nanjing Central University. A month ago, Zhou Lin was brought to the Military Statistics Bureau by Dai Li, the deputy director of the Military Statistics Bureau, who came to his home. He became a member of the Military Statistics Bureau and participated in the defense of Shanghai. This is not what Father Zhou meant. But it was an order from Zhou's cousin, President Jiang. Normally, Zhou Lin is a college graduate, and as long as he goes to the military, he starts as a second lieutenant. It's related, you can be appointed as a lieutenant. However, Zhou Lin did not receive preferential treatment. Uncle asked him to start from the grassroots level. So he went to the battlefield. The information received was very comprehensive, and Zhou Lin became familiar with all the situations of the original owner. This is the period of the Republic of China. There are also 5 continents here, and there is also Japan. Currently, the Japanese army is invading China and slaughtering Chinese soldiers and civilians on a large scale. And the original body was the son of a senior military officer. His uncle was very angry when he heard about his performance as a playboy at school. He cursed Zhou Lin's father Zhou Yongqiang and ordered him to send Zhou Lin to the front line to experience the value of being a soldier. Zhou Yongqiang asked Dai Li for help. Dai Li dared not go against the CEO's wishes and had to arrange Zhou Lin to the Shanghai battlefield. In order to ensure Zhou Lin's safety, Dai Li sent a military statistics team of 25 people to join Zhou Lin in the operation. Before departure, Dai Li explained to the team leader. Be sure to protect Zhou Lin. If you live, he will live. Even if you die, he will also live. That's the sentence, let a team of 25 people die. Zhou Lin has no combat experience and only focuses on shooting and killing enemies on the battlefield without covering himself well. To protect him. The members of the team died in battle one after another. The team leader also died. Finally, Zhou Lin was also hit by a bullet, allowing the 21st century Zhou Lin to travel through. Strangely, after crossing over, his wound actually healed. Not even a scar was left. It's better this way, so as not to make people think. Where did you hit? You're not dead yet. Zhou Lin checked every person who sacrificed in the team. Collected 25 suicide letters. Zhou Lin packed all his suicide letters into his own hanging bag. If they survive on the battlefield, these suicide letters will be sent to their homes. If Zhou Lin is also killed in battle, then he will be powerless. Just as Zhou Lin put the suicide note into his bag, he felt movement on the left side. Someone is attacking. Zhou Lin immediately dodged to the right. At this moment, a bayonet was stabbing at the position where Zhou Lin had originally stood. If he doesn't dodge, he will be stabbed by a bayonet. Seeing Zhou Lin dodge, the Japanese soldier who launched the surprise attack shouted loudly and once again thrust forward. At this moment, Zhou Lin realized that there was no guy in his hand. When the original owner was shot, the rifle was released. Faced with another assassination attempt, Zhou Lin had to dodge once again. Flashing and flickering, Zhou Lin stumbled upon a corpse under his feet and fell down. The Japanese soldier saw Zhou Lin fall, grinned grimly, and once again raised his sword to stab him. Zhou Lin naturally touched the things on the ground. If there is a stone, it's okay to throw it over and smash Little Japan to death. Zhou Lin's prayer was effective, and he touched something in his hand. Gun. A barge gun. Zhou Lin remembered that it was the team leader who tripped him up. This gun is the captain's gun. That was when he fell to the ground after being shot and died. Zhou Lin caught the gun, quickly turned the gun head, and aimed it at Little Japan. That Japanese soldier is foolish. Didn't you see something in his hand just now? Zhou Lin fired. 3 shots were fired and all 3 bullets were hit. Zhou Lin's marksmanship was too poor. Fortunately, he was close enough to close his eyes and could even kill someone. 3 shots did not kill the Japanese soldier, but he was seriously injured. Seeing the Japanese soldiers lying on the ground, Zhou Lin's courage strengthened. Insert the shell gun into the belt around the waist, pick up Little Japan's rifle, hold the gun, and aim the bayonet at the Japanese soldiers on the ground. Let you stab me. Let you ambush me. Zhou Lin thrust downwards as he spoke. Little Japan stabbed Zhou Lin 3 times, and Zhou Lin also stabbed him 3 times. After 3 cuts, Little Japan died. Just then, a voice rang out. The host kills for the first time, and the unlimited upgrade system is officially launched. Zhou Lin gets excited, travel brings benefits. My golden finger has arrived. Host, you just killed 1 Japanese soldier and received a system reward. The reward is one of the deceased's technical strengths. Gunsmanship reward. 50 rings for every 10 shots. Zhou Lin was stunned. Isn't it said that the marksmanship of Little Japan is very good? Why is this guy only 10 shots and 50 rings? This is not a fake Japanese soldier, is it? Fist reward. Each punch has an impact of 50 kilograms. What? Only 50 kilograms per fist. There are 2 types of fist strength. 1. Muscle strength. Generally, the muscle strength of an ordinary person when punching will not exceed 50 kilograms. 2. Impact force, which is the maximum force exerted when hitting the target. The maximum boxing impact of an ordinary man is 100.150 kilograms. 50 kilograms, is this a diseased seedling? System response. The original marksmanship was 10 shots and 90 rings. The boxing impact was 150 kilograms. However, your body has difficulty bearing it. You can only accept 10 shots and 90 rings, as well as the boxing impact of 50 kilograms. Zhou Lin only then realized that it was his own fault. System. The above 2 items are reward items. Please ask the host to make a selection. After confirming the selection, the system will add the skills of the reward items to the host. Become the host skills. Please host select. Zhou Lin considered that it was a war now, and bullets were flying back and forth. Close combat is rare. Boxing only weighs 50 kilograms, it doesn't add much. Gunmanship is the fundamental. Finally, Zhou Lin said, I choose 1, marksmanship. As soon as Zhou Lin finished speaking, he immediately felt a change in himself. My wrist is flexible now. Your hand strength has increased. The reaction ability has become faster. My eyes are seeing far away. Holding a 3 or 8 large lid, he fired a shot at a tree in the distance. Unexpectedly hit, the bullet hit the tree body. Damn it, you're a scammer in the system. Will this be a shot with 5 rings? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Upgrading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Upgrading. After sitting for a while, Zhou Lin's body recovered. Looking at the corpses of Japanese soldiers on the ground, Zhou Lin thought of the military novel, Butterfly and Spy, he had read on Earth in his previous life. Touching the corpses. Horses without night grass are not fat, people without windfall are not rich. A corpse is also a windfall. My cheap old man has a big official, but not much wealth. My monthly allowance is only 50 fiat coins. Cheap old lady secretly gave 50 fiat coins, which added up to only 100 fiat coins. Can 100 fiat coins do it? Guzzi, who lives in the same dormitory in college, has money at home. Treat the guests to a meal and spend 50 fiat coins on one meal. It's better to rely on oneself than on others. To achieve financial freedom, one must resort to crooked ways. Zhou Lin walked up to the bodies of Japanese soldiers and began his great career. After feeling through the pockets of the shirt, take a look at the pockets. This touch really made Zhou Lin touch a lot of things. This guy should have touched the bodies of many people on the battlefield, and now everything is fine with Zhou Lin. The fiat currency is 1,132 yuan. The Japanese yen is 371 yuan. 5 gold rings. A gold chain and 5 gold teeth. 2 jade Buddha pendants. These things, fiat currency, were found on Chinese soldiers. Gold rings, gold chains, and jade Buddha pendants should also be worn by Chinese people. What's disgusting is having 5 golden teeth. Nausea is disgusting, but it's not worth it. As for the 371 yen, it should have been felt from the dead Japanese soldiers. However, these things now belong to Zhou Lin. After touching the Japanese soldiers, Zhou Lin began to touch the bodies of his comrades who had died. The difference is that after he touched out the money and belongings, he wrapped them with a piece of cloth and a suicide note. He wants to send these financial items to the families of his deceased brothers. After finishing these tasks, Zhou Lin got busy again. He wants to move his brothers together, so that the corpse collection team can transport them away together. They also have companions on the road. The team leader was the last to move because he is the farthest away. Zhou Lin carried the team leader on his back and walked towards the front. Suddenly, a gunshot was heard. Then, Zhou Lin felt a shock from behind. Zhou Lin turned around and saw a seriously injured Japanese soldier holding a gun aimed at Zhou Lin. Zhou Lin felt fortunate that the team leader on his back saved him. The bullet got stuck on the captain's body and did not penetrate Zhou Lin. Perhaps the shot just fired used up all the strength of the Japanese soldiers. Without any further support, the gun in the Japanese soldier's hand fell into Zhou Lin's gaze. Zhou Lin didn't put down the squad leader, turned around, picked up his gun, and aimed it at the Japanese soldier who was still alive. Bang! With a gunshot, the Japanese soldier's head exploded. At this moment, the sound of the system rang out. Host, you killed a Japanese soldier to receive a system reward. The reward is one of the deceased's technical strengths. Gunsmanship reward. 50 rings for every 10 shots. Fist reward. Each fist has an impact force of 100 kilograms. Reward for fighting with bayonets. The skill to see the bayonet turn red. Please select one of the 3 options for the host to claim the reward. Please select. These 3 should be the skills of this Japanese soldier. Zhou Lin did not consider the beginner level of marksmanship. Zhou Lin had already obtained the marksmanship before. I don't know if this system will cause stacking yet. If not, the combination of two basic marksmanship techniques may still result in basic marksmanship techniques. I can't even use a bayonet. Zhou Lin wouldn't be so foolish as not to open a gun, waiting to fight with Japanese soldiers with bayonets. So, this time the option can only be two. Fist reward. This time's boxing is much stronger than the last time. Last time it was only 50 kilograms. This time there are 100 kilograms. It should be the reason for Zhou Lin's physical improvement. System, I choose 2. Fist power. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Lin felt his muscles tightening and his bones refining. Needless to say, that is a transformation of one's own body. Zhou Lin clenched his fist and struck forward fiercely. I feel that the punch is very powerful. Zhou Lin believes that his current strength can knock out a wild boar. I don't know how strong I am now. Zhou Lin silently spoke in his heart. As if responding to Zhou Lin, a panel appeared in his mind. Host. Zhou Lin. Age. 22 years old. Occupation. Agent, soldier. Position. Member of the Military Statistics 20th Team. Level. First level. Skills. Basic marksmanship, basic boxing. Power. 100, the normal standard for an ordinary person is 100, speed. 50, the normal standard for an ordinary person is 100, agility. 60, the normal standard for an ordinary person is 100, endurance. 50, the normal standard for an ordinary person is 100, spirit. 130, the normal standard for an ordinary person is 100, agent skills. None. Integral. 0, the 4 basic functions, except for reaching one level of strength, which is the level of a normal person, are all weaker than ordinary people. Zhou Lin couldn't figure it out. With his son's body like this, why did I insist on him joining the war? If it weren't for Zhou Lin crossing over, then I would definitely have received my son's body. In fact, when Zhou Lin crossed over, he had already died. Carrying the team leader onto a collapsed house. 24 corpses have already been laid out here. Zhou Lin placed the team leader in the middle of everyone. This is exactly the scene from the past. At that time, when we arrived at the front line, everyone gathered around for a meeting. The captain sits in the middle. Everyone sits around. Zhou Lin's eyes turned red and he hurriedly came out. Leaning against the collapsed wall, Zhou Lin took out a cigarette and started smoking. At this moment, Zhou Lin felt someone approaching. This place belongs to the front line and is a lost front line. The battlefield has advanced. There are no living people here now, they are all corpses. It's impossible for Chinese people to come over. Because it is too close to the Japanese position here, approaching it is easy to be shot by the Japanese army. Judging from this person's appearance, there is no panic at all, indicating that he is not Chinese. If he is not Chinese, then he is Japanese. On the Shanghai battlefield, there are many Japanese agents who are responsible for collecting intelligence and providing intelligence support to the Japanese army. Some of these people are dressed in civilian attire, while others are dressed as ambulance personnel. More about the attire of Chinese soldiers. This person is dressed like a Chinese military officer. Seeing Zhou Lin smoking against the wall, the person mistook him for a Japanese spy. He asked tentatively in Chinese, "Where are you from?" His Chinese sounds strange. Zhou Lin knew immediately that this person was not Chinese. Zhou Lin deliberately answered in Japanese, "I am Hokkaido." The person walked over happily upon hearing Zhou Lin's reply, "I'm also from Hokkaido." "I'm from Shibian Township." "Are you from the bottom?" "I am from the top." After Zhou Lin answered, he took out a Japanese cigarette and threw it to the person. This cigarette is a loot seized while touching the corpse. Zhou Lin threw this cigarette well, it would make that person unable to catch it. The person lost his hand and lowered his head to pick up the cigarette box. At this moment, Zhou Lin took action. Zhou Lin rushed forward and immediately swung his right fist, using all his strength. The Japanese spy had just picked up the cigarette when he heard the sound of hurried footsteps, and he felt a slight unease. Just as he was about to take a step back, Zhou Lin's fist arrived. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Special Agent Skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Special Agent Skills. Japanese agents didn't have time to respond, so they were punched by Zhou Lin. This punch hit him on the head. Immediately, knocked him unconscious. The Japanese soldier thought to himself, "Is that all you have above you?" Without any hesitation, Zhou Lin drew out his bayonet and cut the other person's throat. At the moment when the Japanese spy died, the prompt sound came. Host, you killed Japanese agents and received system rewards. The reward is one of the deceased's technical strengths. Makeup reward. Beginner makeup, thief art reward. Beginner level theft art. Investigation skill reward. Beginner level. Please select one of the 3 options for the host to claim the reward. Please select. In his previous life, Zhou Lin read many TV novels and learned about the situation of spies. Military statistics is the largest spy unit. Working here requires special agent skills. Many people have studied and worked for several years to master the skills of spies and become proficient. And now the special agent skill for killing rewards doesn't need to be learned. Once you receive it, you become proficient. This made Zhou Lin particularly happy. For Zhou Lin, his favorite of these 3 functions is reconnaissance skills. This is also a necessary skill for agents. As for theft, that is the ability to steal and unlock doors. Zhou Lin doesn't need it temporarily. And that makeup technique, I can't use it for now. On the battlefield in Shanghai, people who knew Zhou Lin almost died. No one knows you, what are you pretending to be? System, I choose reconnaissance skills. Speak with Zhou Lin's words. A lot of things came to Zhou Lin's mind. This Japanese spy studied at a spy school in Tokyo for 6 months. His knowledge is decent. Zhou Lin has fully learned the opponent's investigative skills. He is no longer an outsider now. After receiving the reward, Zhou Lin went around and started his favorite project, touching corpses. This is a frontline position, and many soldiers have died on both sides. At present, the bodies of their respective soldiers have not been retrieved. This gave Zhou Lin a great harvest. This time, he collected 5,500 fiat coins. 1,100 yen. There are dozens of gold jewelry. They are all small things. Especially the Japanese spy who cut off Zhou Lin's throat, carrying 4,000 fiat coins and 170 yen. At this time, the fiat is very hard. $1 is exchanged for 1.5 fiat. 1 yen is exchanged for 0.7 fiat coins. This is not small money. This person, carrying so much money, should have been ordered to go to the controlled area of Chinese soldiers for activities. But what is he doing with all this money? At this moment, a paragraph appeared in Zhou Lin's mind. Spending 100 grams of gold can replay the memories of the person killed by the host the day before. Zhou Lin's eyes lit up. Can you see the memory data of the deceased on the day before their death? That doesn't mean I can find out the reason why he brought so much money. Zhou Lin took out the gold jewelry he had just received. These should be more than 100 grams of gold, right? System, I need to trace back the memory data of the Japanese spy the day before. Zhou Lin saw that more than 10 of the gold jewelry in his hand had disappeared. Collect 100 grams of gold and start backtracking. At this moment, Zhou Lin saw a scene. It's a continuous shot. The deceased Japanese spy sat in a room. After waiting for 2 hours, a Japanese colonel came in. The deceased stood up and both sides saluted. "Sir, please ask the deceased to sit down. Sato Jun, the situation on the front line is not very smooth. We need your intelligence support." The deceased, Sato, stood up and said, "May I serve the Empire?" Zhou reached out and pulled Sato down to sit down. "Sato Jun, a while ago, in order to meet the needs of the Shanghai battlefield, we dispatched more than 100 Imperial agents to the controlled areas of Chinese soldiers to carry out destruction and gather intelligence. They have made great contributions to the Empire. However, we have also suffered heavy losses. Out of over 100 people, only 7 can be contacted now." Sato's heart trembled as 100 people went out, only 7 returned. It indicates that going here is a sure thing. The colonel continued, "Without the support of intelligence, we would be blind and deaf, unable to effectively strike the Chinese army, let alone occupy Shanghai. Therefore, the headquarters requires the support of special agents." Sato nodded, realizing that he had been lurking in Qingdao. This time, he was transferred to Shanghai. "Sato Jun, we know that you have achieved a lot in Qingdao. Therefore, we have decided to appoint you as the leader of the Spy Group 5. Your group consists of 3 people. They are your direct subordinates. They are all imperialists who were sent here 3 years ago to hide in Shanghai. If it weren't for the war of the Empire, we wouldn't have awakened them." Sato asked, "What do I need to do?" "You go to the Chinese military-controlled area in Shanghai and follow the method I gave you. Wake them up. Then, lead them and ask them to provide you with intelligence. You will bring the intelligence back to me." "Yes." Next, the colonel took out a piece of paper. Sato saw 3 people on the paper. There is no contact address or name. The names written on the paper are only their original names and codes. In addition to these, there are also contact methods and joint codes. Sato spent an hour memorizing every word on the paper. Afterwards, the sergeant retrieved the paper and lit it with a lighter, eventually turning it into ashes. After burning the paper, the sergeant took out a stack of coins from the leather bag on his body, all of which were fiat currency. "These fiat coins, you have 1,000 fiat coins to use for your activity expenses. The rest, you give those 3 people 1,000 fiat coins each. This is the funds given by the Empire to them." "Yes." Sato accepted the money and put it on his body. 3 hours later, our cannons will shell and cover you. During this time, you will stay here. We have prepared exquisite food for you and bid you farewell." An hour later, Sato received 7 plates of Japanese cuisine. No alcohol. The sergeant said that when Sato completes the task and comes back, he will receive the message and let him drink enough. 3 hours later, the Japanese army began shelling. Sato changed into the clothing of Chinese soldiers found by the Japanese army on the battlefield, and rode in the darkness towards the battlefield where the battle was raging. Unfortunately, he got lost. There are many streets and alleys in Shanghai that look very similar. After circling for 5 hours, Sato could only distinguish the direction when it was dawn. Later on, he met Zhou Lin and was cut in the throat with a knife. After watching the camera, Zhou Lin realized why Sato had so much money on him. However, these funds have solved Zhou Lin's worries. Previously, he was worried about how to get the money. According to Zhou Lin's plan, the deceased brothers would have to give at least 200 fiat coins to each family. 25 people require 5,000 fiat coins. So, Zhou Lin plans to ask his parents for 5,000 yuan to send to the homes of these brothers after returning. After the war is over, go to every house again. Now, he is no longer worried about money. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Return to Team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Return to Team. For the first time touching a corpse, Zhou Lin received a fiat worth 1,132 yuan. The Japanese yen is 371 yuan. The second time I touched the corpse, I also received 5,500 fiat coins. 1,100 yen. 2 times added up, the fiat is 6,632 yuan. The Japanese yen is 1,471 yuan. Zhou Lin has changed his plan and is preparing to send 300 fiat coins to each household. In the current Republic of China, a lieutenant colonel's officer only earns 20 fiat dollars per month. A family in Shanghai has a monthly living expenses of only 5 fiat coins. Zhou Lin sighed and felt a little relieved in his heart. At that moment, he heard a burst of footsteps. Zhou Lin immediately grabbed the 3 or 8 large covers in his hand tightly and pushed them into the chamber. Perhaps hearing the sound of Zhou Lin loading, the footsteps over there disappeared. Shuang fell silent for a moment. 5 minutes later, in the opposite direction, a burst of bird calls came. Bugu. Bugu. Upon hearing this, Zhou Lin's expression relaxed. This is not the time when cuckoo birds appear. Hearing the cuckoo bird chirp indicates that the squadron leader has arrived. The signal from Zhou Lin's team is chirping. That is the call of magpies. So Zhou Lin put his hands together in his mouth and let out a chirping sound. Upon hearing Zhou Lin's cry, the other party's voice excitedly shouted, "The 20th team is still here." That's from the 20th team. Then, the group rushed over. The leader is Zhou Lin's squadron leader. As he rushed forward, he shouted, "20 teams, I'm here to pick you up and go home." Zhou Lin stood up and retreated to the front of the collapsed house, shouting to the squad leader. Captain of the report, the 20th team was supposed to have 26 people, but it was actually 26 people. I'm reporting to you. We request to return to the team. The captain saw Zhou Lin standing alone to report, and his heart sank. He rushed up to Zhou Lin, grabbed his hand, and asked, "Where's your captain? Where are the others?" Zhou Lin pointed to the collapsed house and said, "They're tired. Let's rest there." The platoon leader turned his head and saw 20.5 sacrificed soldiers lying inside the house. The captain's tears flowed out. He took off his military cap and bowed 3 times to the 20.5 people lying on the ground. The people who came with him all took off their hats and bowed 3 times. The squadron leader wiped his tears with his sleeves and shouted loudly, "Brothers of Team 20, I'm here to pick you up and go home." 27 people came over, each carrying a sacrificial warrior. The captain also personally memorized one. Carrying the squad leader. Zhou Lin didn't grab anyone's back, so he and 3 others carried guns from the 20th team. After walking for over 2 hours, I returned to the barracks of the death squad. I received the news in advance that there were 2 long queues outside the military camp. Every time Zhou Lin walked past a soldier, someone raised their hand and saluted. Return to the base of Team 20. These are 2 barracks. Each room has a bunk and sleeps 13 people. But only Zhou Lin went in. Zhou Lin sat on the big shop, tears streaming down again. At this moment, the squad leader accompanied the captain. The platoon leader asked, "Zhou Lin, what are your plans? Do you want to be transferred to the brigade headquarters?" The brigade headquarters is short of 1 runner. Zhou Lin knew that the brigade did not need anyone at all. That's when the squad leader wants to take care of himself. Zhou Lin firmly said, "Captain, I request to stay here. As long as I am here, Team 20 will be there." The captain praised and said, "Okay. Zhou Lin, listen." Zhou Lin stood at attention and said, "Zhou Lin accepts orders. Please give instructions. Appoint Zhou Lin as the captain of the 20th Squadron of the Military Statistics Expendable Death Squad. Promoted to the rank of sergeant." "Yes." Zhou Lin saluted and took a shotgun from the captain's hand. That represents the identity of the team captain. After taking the gun, Zhou Lin hesitated whether to tell the captain about it. Zhou Lin's hesitant expression was noticed by the cunning captain. He said to the squadron leader, "You go prepare a table of food, I want to welcome Zhou Lin." "Yes." After the squadron leader left, the captain patted Zhou Lin's shoulder and said, "The bureau seat handed you over to me with his own hands. Seeing that you are safe, I feel relieved. Seeing that you are hesitant, what do you want to say? There is no one here, please speak up." Zhou Lin took out a pack of Japanese Juju cigarettes and handed them to the captain. The platoon leader took the cigarette, lit it, and took a sip. "This cigarette is very light, like a girl's smoking." How come you have this cigarette?" Zhou Lin also lit a cigarette and said, "Captain, this is what I captured." "Did you kill Japanese soldiers?" Kill 3. One of them is a Japanese spy. This Japanese spy came with a mission. He got lost and came to our team. I was smoking this cigarette at the time. He smelled the smoke and came over. The captain looked at Zhou Lin and said, "You're not injured, are you?" "No. He treated me as an accomplice at the time." Companion. They each have their own rooms and haven't met each other. I only know that there were 13 people who infiltrated the Chinese position this time. When he got lost and saw me, I immediately knew he was Rita. Why? He failed in Chinese. Captain thought about it, Chinese is very difficult. Not having a few years of study is not good. Zhou Lin continued, "Later, he had a Japanese conversation with me, which led him to believe that I was also a Japanese special." "Wait, you said you can speak Japanese." Zhou Lin took a sip of his cigarette and said, "What's so rare about this? I'm a top student at Nanjing Central University." Captain realized, yes, Zhou Lin is a college student. What's so unusual about college students speaking foreign languages? What did you talk about? Zhou Lin said, "That person asked me where my mission area is. I casually mentioned the location of our battalion. When I asked him about his mission area, he said it's in Jiaxi. And he complained that the Chinese anti-intelligence force in Jiaxi is very strong, and he is worried about being caught." What happened later? I used his tone, and he only said go to the contact person to wake up the sleeping person. If I asked again, I wouldn't say anything. Finally, when he lowered his head, I knocked him unconscious. Then, I interrogated him and asked him something. However, I exerted too much force, and the Japanese spy didn't survive. The captain said, "If you die, you'll die." "No. You're causing trouble." "What's wrong?" "You punished him, left scars on his body, and died there. If the Japanese receive his body and recognize him, then they know he has had an accident and revealed the truth. No, I have to go and destroy that body." Zhou Lin smiled and said, "Don't worry. Captain, I have already dealt with the body." The Japanese shell exploded in a deep pit, very deep. The body of the Japanese spy was thrown into the pit, and I filled the remaining bricks and tiles in the pit. The Japanese cannot find it. The captain looked at Zhou Lin and said, "What are your plans?" "Captain, I want to take on this task. Disguise myself and go meet up with the lurking Japanese spy." "No way. It's too dangerous." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Panel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Panel, Captain. Anyone who goes is in danger. I know Japanese and talked to that Rita for an hour to understand his movement habits and tone. No one is more suitable than me. Let me go. The captain also believes that Zhou Lin is the most suitable person. But he can't make the decision and needs to report to the bureau. So, rest first, eat and drink well. I'll get back to you tomorrow. After speaking, I won't accompany Zhou Lin for dinner. Advising the captain of the squadron to treat Zhou Lin well with delicious food and drink, the brigade leader left straight away. Returning to the brigade headquarters, the captain first smoked a cigarette and thought about the entire report in his mind before making a long-distance call to Nanjing. I used a confidential phone number to prevent eavesdropping. I called Dai Li. Under normal circumstances, people at the level of captain do not have the right to report directly to the director. Between him and the director, there is a section chief and a director. Cannot report beyond the level. However, when Dai Li handed Zhou Lin over to the captain, he said he could report anything directly to Dai Li. So, as soon as the phone was connected, Dai Li felt uneasy. Is something wrong with Zhou Lin? The captain dared not conceal. Yes. But he has returned safely. The rest of their team died to protect him. Dai Li remained silent for a few seconds and said, add an extra 100 fiat to each of those 25 people's household pension. Yes. Bureau, Zhou Lin has brought back a message. What news? The captain reported what Zhou Lin said to Dai Li. Dai Li asked in surprise, is there such a good thing? Yes. He requested to be responsible for this matter, but I can't make the decision. That's why I went over the line to report to you. This is a great case of overstepping the level. Don't look at us internally, there must be some people who have problems. If you report it step by step, it is possible to let the Japanese know and take precautions in advance. If this case is solved, you have made great contributions. I will reward you. The captain stood at attention and said, thank you, Bureau. Zhou Lin is right. He knows that right the best. If you want to solve this case, you really can't do without him. Didn't you appoint him as the captain of the 20th team? Then hand over this case to the 20th team. Bureau seat, there is only one person in the 20th team. No one can join. Don't send new players. Just transfer someone with strong abilities and high reliability from other teams. What you need to do is give Zhou Lin a good hand. Obey the order. Zhou Lin here finally had a full meal. Born on the battlefield, often hungry. Seeing the dishes on the table, my eyes were very greedy and I ate them all at once. Returning to the barracks, Zhou Lin took out a small notebook and wrote down the addresses of his brothers and the names of their families. And their testaments and inheritance were divided into 20.5 piles. The squadron leader brought 20.5 cloth bags, all of which had addresses and recipient names written on them. Zhou Lin took out 7,500 yuan in fiat currency. The poor money, he took out Japanese yen and exchanged it with the captain for 1,000 fiat coins. In each bag, 300 yuan of fiat currency was put in. There is also a letter written by Zhou Lin himself. In the letter, Zhou Lin left his own name and address. Tell the parents of the brothers that from now on, they will be their sons. If you have anything, come find Zhou Lin. If there is time, Zhou Lin will go and see them. The squad leader accompanied Zhou Lin to the post office with 5 or 6 people. These are the martyrs' suicide letters and relics. You must ensure that they are delivered to their families' hands. If one thing is missing, I will kill you. Do you know? The platoon leader pulled out his gun and gestured to the people at the post office. The people at the post office nodded in fear. Each email uses a special registration. Originally, special registration will not be lost. It needs to obtain the recipient's handwritten signature. At the telephone station, Zhou Lin made a call to his family. As soon as the phone was connected, my mother cried uncontrollably. Zhou's father advised Zhou's mother, didn't he come back? Once he comes back, it's okay. My mother talked to Zhou Lin on the phone for a few minutes. Then the phone reached Zhou's father's hands. Zhou Lin said, my life was saved by those 20.5 comrades with their lives. I want to support their families. Zhou's father said, that's right. I will send someone to learn about their family's situation. Zhou's mother said, you can give them the money from your family. Zhou Lin said, I don't need it yet. I have already sent 300 yuan to each family. When there is a shortage of money, I will ask my family. Mother said, Lin heir, why don't you go back to Nanjing? Zhou Lin sighed and said, Nanjing is also difficult to guarantee. Without a country, where can there be a home? I will continue to stay and fight for my country, for my home. Zhou's father was very happy and said, you have grown up. Returning to the barracks of the 20th team, Zhou Lin slept on the big bunk. This position is his original position. The whole room was empty, with Zhou Lin alone. Zhou Lin couldn't sleep and sat up again, taking out the remaining gold jewelry. He thought of something. The system can trace the past experiences of the deceased, which is a very useful skill. However, a large amount of gold is also needed. 100 grams, 3 small yellow croakers. It seems that we need to prepare more gold reserves. Maybe at some point in the future, I will use the backtracking function, which can help me. But carrying hundreds of grams of gold all day is a bit dangerous, isn't it? At this moment, a piece of information appeared in Zhou Lin's mind. Gold can be exchanged for points in advance. Points can be traced back and have other uses. Can it still be like this? Zhou Lin immediately grabbed the gold jewelry and said, System, exchange all these gold jewelry for points. Why do I have to keep tinkling all day with gold when there are points that don't take up an area? Gold exchange completed. Exchange 178 points. The gold jewelry in front of Zhou Lin is missing. Zhou Lin will open the panel immediately. Host. Zhou Lin. Age. 22 years old. Occupation. Agent, soldier. Position. Captain of the 20th Military Statistics Brigade, Sergeant. Level. First level. Skills. Basic marksmanship, basic boxing. Basic investigative skills. Power. 110, speed. 70, agility. 80, endurance. 70, spirit. 150, agent skill. Beginner level reconnaissance skills. Paid function. Time tracing. Integral. 178, Zhou Lin excitedly waved his fists a few times. That's so interesting. Now, all the attributes of Zhou Lin have been improved. Strength increased by 10, speed, agility, and endurance all increased by 20. The skill has increased to basic reconnaissance skills. Added a spiritual aspect to the attribute aspect. A normal person's spirit is 100, and it is possible that Zhou Lin is a traveler, so his spirit is 150. Added a paid feature. Time retrospective. Also, gold has been converted into points. 1 gram of gold is exchanged for 1 point. Points can cover the cost of time reversal. It can also have other uses. Zhou Lin asked the system, what other uses are there? The system replied, don't be a Reuters. Want to know? Then work hard to upgrade. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Team Establishment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Team Establishment. Seeing the remaining Japanese yen in his hand, Zhou Lin excitedly went to the bank and exchanged all the yen for gold. A total of 224 grams of gold were exchanged back. Zhou Lin exchanged 224 grams of gold for points. Now, he has 402 points. According to the requirement of 100 points per day for backtracking, Zhou Lin can perform a 4-day backtracking, or a 4-day backtracking. Impulse is the devil. After the exchange, Zhou Lin discovered an issue. Sato went to deliver money, but the money was sent by Zhou Lin to the homes of his deceased brothers. Where are you going to make money now? When the team leader came over and notified Zhou Lin, the higher authorities approved Zhou Lin's requirements and carried out according to Zhou Lin's plan. Zhou Lin said with a mournful expression, Captain, could you lend me 3,000 fiat coins first? What do you need that much money for? The platoon leader asked. Sato provides event funds. Each family costs 1,000 fiat coins and 300 yen. Didn't you receive these money? I got it, I used it again. How is it used? I sent it to the captain or brothers' homes. The captain came out and asked the platoon leader to confirm that this was the case. Zhou Lin did not embezzle this money. At present, the captain has to go and raise money. After driving for 7 or 8 places, the captain only managed to gather 3,000 francs. Don't lose it again, kid. Zhou Lin made a promise and said that he would definitely return 3,000 fiat coins to the captain. One day later, the barracks of the 20th team were filled with people again. This time, only 3 personnel from our brigade have been transferred. There are 5 people transferred from the other battalion. 2 people have been transferred to the headquarters of the bureau. The other 15 men were transferred from Middle Note. In this way, with Zhou Lin added, there were 20.6 people. Zhou Lin is the team leader, and the 2 members of the bureau headquarters are deputy team leaders. One person is named Wang Shi, and the other is named Xiang Zijuan. Jiang Shi is responsible for the intelligence team, and Xiang Zijuan is responsible for the operation team. There are 11 members in the intelligence class, and the class leader is Yu Yi. 10 team members under my command. There are 11 people in the action class, and the class leader is Chao Xing. My subordinates are also 10 team members. In addition to the personnel mentioned above, the 20th team also has a dedicated telegraph operator. The telegraph operator's name is Ma Chuan. The personnel will be ready in a day, and this speed is very fast. The 2 vice captains and telegraph operators from the headquarters may have received prior instructions. So first of all, I am very cooperative with Zhou Lin's work. The squad leader of the intelligence team was transferred from other teams in our brigade. The leader of the action team is a person from the military. In the barracks where Zhou Lin lived, he held his first plenary session. At the meeting, everyone got to know each other and deepened their impression. After the meeting, Zhou Lin left the 2 vice captains behind. Zhou Lin said to Jiang Shi, the intelligence team will depart at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning and be divided into 3 groups, each responsible for a target. Jiang Shi replied, yes, Captain. What are the 3 targets? Zhou Lin gave the address. You are responsible for checking the situation of these 3 groups. Be careful. The people in these 3 places are Japanese undercover agents. They have been lurking for more than 3 years and are very familiar with the terrain and personnel. Jiang Shi worried and said, it's difficult for us to keep an eye on such a person. If we approach someone he doesn't know, then he will be alert. Zhou Lin asked suspiciously, is it really like this? Xiang Zijuan said, the 3 places you mentioned, Captain, are really not easy to do. If in other places, our people dress up as vendors, drivers, and various characters, there is no problem at all. But these 3 places are not good. Why? Because there is not much foot traffic in these 3 places. As soon as outsiders come in, they appear unfamiliar and attract the attention of the locals. Zhou Lin handed each of them a cigarette and said, there is no identity that can be covered up. Jiang Shi said, difficulty. There is a gang in the local area that controls the business on the street. All business people need their approval. They set up stalls without permission, and their interference is significant. That's why we find it difficult to break in. Zhou Lin thought for a moment and asked, is there no other way? Jiang Shi said, I have a solution, I can give it a try. Speak up and listen. In Shanghai right now, who has the most people? They are just wounded soldiers. After those wounded soldiers retire, they cause trouble everywhere and often fight. When they fight, they become a group of people. Everyone is afraid of wounded soldiers. Even the mafia is afraid of wounded soldiers. Zhou Lin smiled and said, then pretend to be an injured soldier. Let's take action this afternoon. At 1:30 p.m., at the intersection of Jiangshu Street, 3 nationalist soldiers walked in. One left hand is hanging a strap, and the other right foot is a bit crooked. There is also one, with complete hands and feet. There is a large patch in the left eye. 3 people drank some small wine and arrived at Jiangshu Street. They walked outside a tobacco and alcohol store and looked at the sign. A person said, I've finished smoking. The Cyclops said, then go in. 3 people entered the store. There is a young man in his 20s in the store, and when he saw these 3 people, his face collapsed. 3 people, our store is closed now. I have something to go out of. The wounded soldier enters the door, please get on. After they came in, they only paid 50 cents for what was originally 5 yuan and took it away. You're not selling it. Then hit it, and then hit it again. What you have lost is over 50 yuan. So, when the wounded soldiers arrived, the young man had to close the door. Hearing this, the lame man shouted, you are his mother. The young man was furious and said, who are you cursing? The cripple said, I'll just scold you. What's wrong? I don't want to do my business, I want to drive me away. If I don't scold you, who will I scold? The young man is also someone who can't afford to lose. He rushed forward in one breath, and then the person rushed over, slapping the cripple. This slap hit the cripple's face. The cripple definitely didn't recognize the fight, so he rushed forward. The one-eyed dragon looked and rushed forward. 2-1, there is no suspense, and that young man has become a dark-eyed chicken. The young man was beaten like this, yet he still refused to give in. Shouting loudly, asking people outside to call for Big Head Brother. Another round of blows hit the young man, who cried out, I've taken it. 3 wounded soldiers immediately swept through the store. Take 3 cigarettes per person, and 2 bottles of wine per person. Just as they were getting excited, more than 10 people rushed towards the door. 3 wounded soldiers saw the situation and returned to the store. Latched the store door and guarded inside. Cyclops saw the public phone in the store, picked up the phone, and dialed it out. Captain, we've been beaten. Come and save me now. The shout of the Cyclops was heard by people outside. But they don't care. When you have good feet and hands, your platoon leader will take care of you. You have become an injured soldier and have been kicked out. Your company commander will not help you. So, they are not afraid of wounded soldiers calling out. However, they guessed wrong. More than 10 minutes later, a group of people rushed in outside the street. These people are also wounded soldiers, but they hold guys in their hands. A man with a gun in his hand rushed into the street with over 20 wounded soldiers. A few members of the gang came forward to intercept. Without hesitation, the person holding a pistol immediately fired and injured the members of the gang. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Counterfeiting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Counterfeiting. Gangs are not afraid of the people because they are ruthless. However, when encountering a group of wounded soldiers who were even more ruthless than them, they were also unscathed. The other gang members immediately helped several injured people escape. The wounded soldiers did not pursue. The wounded soldier with a pistol came to the outside of the tobacco hotel and shouted, Daniel, open the door. The door opened a crack and a head protruded. This person is the cripple who fought with his buddy. Seeing the platoon leader coming, the cripple immediately opened the door. Captain, there are a lot of cigarettes and alcohol in this shop. It's enough for brothers to smoke. The platoon leader walked in and nodded, this place is good. From now on, military control will be in place. The people outside shook their heads and left one after another. One person sandwiched among the public is the leader of the gang. Unable to fight, these 20+ people are all carrying guns and can kill us at any time. Forget it, let's be fooled by Lu Laosan once. Head and heart ache. That's a few thousand fiat coins of tobacco and alcohol. Now, even though it's a gift, it hasn't earned any favor yet. Looking for the police. Does it make people laugh when the gang calls the police? Also, is it useful for the police to come? The police are also afraid of injuring soldiers. They have died once and are not afraid of death. Besides, they have made contributions to the country, and the police cannot do anything about them. Just as the gang leader left in sadness, Zhou Lin entered Jiangshu Street. With the injured soldiers causing trouble and attracting attention, the street has attracted many outsiders. These people are here to watch the excitement. So, Zhou Lin's appearance did not attract anyone's attention. Of course, there were still a few people who looked at him and then turned their heads away without seriously investigating. Zhou Lin came to a storefront with the name Shenji Meat Shop hanging on it, looked at the sign, and then walked into the shop. In the store, there is a meat board made of a big tree with a small half of pork on it. On the top of this meat board, there is a row of iron hooks for fishing, hanging a pig head and 2 pig feet. Behind the meat board, stood a fat man with big ears. This man is about 30 years old, holding a meat chopping knife in his hand. Zhou Lin felt that if someone was unfaithful, the meat knife would come over. The man didn't say hello when he saw Zhou Lin coming over. Just standing there quietly watching Zhou Lin. Zhou Lin slowly walked up to the butcher and asked softly, "How do you sell this meat?" The butcher's eyes flickered and he said, "Those who do not sell meat, please go out." Zhou Lin was curious, "How do you know I don't buy meat?" "I know everyone living on this street. Outsiders won't buy meat." "Why don't outsiders buy meat?" "There are meat vendors on every street, and they won't be willing to sacrifice their proximity for distance. Besides, there is a meat shop outside our street entrance. With that meat shop, no outsiders come here to buy meat." Zhou Lin slapped and said, "Sir's inference is very clever. Just like Wei Qianguo. Wei Qianli was born in the late Qing dynasty. Due to his profound expertise in metaphysics, he was once known as one of the 3 great masters of Shanghai's life sciences along with Yuan Shushan and Su Lu during the Republic of China period. Throughout his life, he predicted the fates of many well-known political figures, including Chiang Kai-shek in the current Republic of China government. The butcher hesitated and immediately replied, "I'm not like Wei Qianguo. I like Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie's works have distinctive layout and plot. As soon as the work opens, doubts abound and strange events emerge, causing confusion and curiosity among readers. Reading Christie's works, the climax rises one after another, making readers unable to stop. As they stare closely at her, they cannot guess what medicine Christie's gourd is selling. When the reader is a little careless, she will surprise you." Zhou Lin gave a secret signal, catching the butcher off guard. But he immediately reacted and answered the secret code. Zhou Lin continued, "If it's novels, I like Tang Huan." The butcher responded with the final secret message. "Tang Huan likes Little Women. These codes and joint methods." It was obtained by Zhou Lin through backtracking in Sato's memory. After the secret code matched, the butcher walked out and looked outside. Especially looking towards the smoking hotel in the distance. I realized that no one was paying attention here, so I finally felt relieved. The butcher locked the shop door. Zhou Lin asked, "If you close the door, will it attract the attention of those who are interested?" The butcher replied, "I have to take a nap for an hour at this time every day. I often close the door. It's abnormal if I don't close it." Zhou Lin nodded and realized that one cannot only judge people by their appearance. Who could have imagined that the fat-headed and big-eared person in front of him would have such a delicate heart? After locking the door, the butcher led Zhou Lin into the inner courtyard. As soon as he entered the inner courtyard, Zhou Lin smelled the fragrance of meat. Zhou Lin knew what it was, but pretended not to know and asked, "What are you doing?" So fragrant. The butcher said, "This is Shanghai's specialty dish, sauce pork." Sauce pork is mainly made from evenly fat and lean pork belly, which is braised with over 20 different spices. Sauce pork has a fresh and tender texture, a unique taste, and rich nutritional value, which is deeply loved by the public. Here, the butcher has sauce pork feet, sauce pork, and sauce skeleton. At this time, people are not as focused on health preservation as those in the aftermarket, and they particularly enjoy eating meat. The butcher took out 2 pig feet, a piece of pork, and several skeletons. Pig feet are not cut, pork is cut into pieces, and the skeleton is placed directly on the pot. Adapt to local conditions. I sell meat, so please treat you to pork. The butcher took out a bottle of Shanghai baijiu, took out 2 small bowls, poured a bowl of wine for Zhou Lin, and poured it for himself. 2 people are sitting at the table, facing each other. The butcher raised his wine bowl and said, "Come, drink." Zhou Lin took a big sip without any reaction. The butcher looked at Zhou Lin in surprise and said, "You look like you're from northeast China." Zhou Lin took another sip and said, "It's in the northern region, not the northeast. I came from Qingdao. Last time, all the people sent in died, and that's when we were transferred over." The butcher nodded and said, "I've heard of it. I catch spies every day. I estimate the losses are not small." "Of course not, otherwise it wouldn't wake you up either." Zhou Lin took out a cigarette box and handed it to the butcher. On the outside of this cigarette box, we are using a Shanghai cigarette box. But inside the cigarette box, there are Japanese cigarettes. The butcher held a cigarette and did not immediately light it. Instead, he placed the cigarette on his nose and slowly sniffed it. "I can smell the scent of my hometown from this tobacco." Zhou Lin immediately sat upright and asked, "Are you from Kyushu?" Kyushu is the place with the highest tobacco production in Japan. The butcher shook his head, picked up a cigarette, lit it, and took a sip. He swallowed this bite directly into his stomach, and it took him a long time for smoke to come out of his nose. This is a very skilled smoker. Zhou Lin smoked while spitting, leaving no smoke in his stomach. If he were to smoke like this, he would have to choke to death. The butcher took 3 sips in a row before looking at Zhou Lin and saying, "My home is in Shigua." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Continued. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 continued. Shikoku, also known as Shikoku Island, was formerly known as Io Island, in ancient times, and later abbreviated as Io Island, or Nemitsu Island. According to the Administrative Division of Japan, it includes Tokushima Prefecture, Awa, Xiangchuan Prefecture, Zanchi, Ehime Prefecture, Yu, and Kochi Prefecture, Tosa. Due to the division into 4 countries, it is called Shikoku Island in modern times. In Japan's tobacco production, besides Kyushu, it is the tobacco industry of Shikoku. No wonder the butcher could smell the smell from the tobacco. After all, tobacco is grown from the soil, and both the leaves and tobacco will carry a hint of the original soil. Zhou Lin took out 2 more packs of cigarettes from his body and handed the cigarette on the table to the butcher, saying, "Keep it. If you miss home, smoke one." The butcher took the cigarette and his expression softened. At this moment, he truly accepted Zhou Lin. Zhou Lin raised his wine glass and said, "Saburo Sato." He is from Hokkaido. The butcher raised his glass and said, "Masao Oshima." He is from Shikoku. 2 people looked up at the same time and took a sip of the wine from the wine bowl in their hands. Zhou Lin wiped his mouth and said in Japanese, "It's really enjoyable." The butcher, Masao Oshima, also said in Japanese, "This is the only time in 3 years that I have been able to drink heavily." Zhou Lin picked up a bottle of wine, filled it up for Dadao, and then filled it up for himself. "Lord Oshima. You are a hero of the Yamato nation, and I respect you." Dadao and Zhou Lin drank another bowl. 4 bowls of wine go down, and 1 bottle is gone. Oshima brought 2 more bottles. Zhou Lin said, you can't drink anymore. You still have to open the door for business. Oshima finished his drink and said, that's good. We'll continue drinking tonight and get drunk before we rest. De Dao went out to sell meat, while Zhou Lin lay in the room next to De Dao's bedroom. Now, we have successfully infiltrated. This excited Zhou Lin. But after excitement, there was also worry. Previously, Oshima looked at the expressions of the wounded soldiers with great suspicion. Also, the arrangement of this room on Oshima. When he arrived in this room, Zhou Lin had seen the next room. He saw a grass mat. Why use a grass mat when there is a bed? That's because the homeowner doesn't have a bed at all, but prefers to sleep on the ground. A grass mat is laid on the ground. Japan is a world-renowned island country with a very high population density, hence the Japanese have a special sleep culture. In Japan, there is a habit called Japanese sleep, which is to lie on the ground and sleep. Many Japanese people like to lay a mat or mattress on the floor and then lie down to sleep on it. This method is very different from the Western way of sleeping through a bed, but it is a traditional culture of Japanese people. Sleeping on the floor also helps with a relaxed and comfortable life. Sleeping on a simple mattress or floor at home can help people relax and feel comfortable. In addition, sleeping on the floor can also help regulate body temperature and health. The climate in Japan changes greatly, with cold and humid weather. In Japanese sleep, the sleeping mat is thick and warm, which can make the user feel warm and comfortable, avoiding problems such as freezing or overheating. In addition, sleeping on the ground also improves the breathability of people's bodies, which is more conducive to their health. Zhou Lin analyzed that De Dao still sleeps on the ground every day. However, the room given to Zhou Lin by Oshima did not have a straw mat. There is no straw mat, but there is a bed. This is like giving Zhou Lin a chance to make a choice. Is it a bed? Still sleeping underground? Zhou Lin immediately made a choice. Of course, it's sleeping underground. If Zhou Lin sleeps in bed, it indicates that Zhou Lin's previous habit was to sleep in bed. So it's clear who Zhou Lin is. If Zhou Lin still sleeps on the ground without a grass mat, then he is a person who has been accustomed to sleeping underground for a long time. Zhou Lin carried the blanket on the bed to the ground and spread it out. After finishing it, Zhou Lin lay on the ground. Before crossing over, Zhou Lin slept on a hard bed, and his original body also liked to sleep on a hard bed, so he didn't feel uncomfortable sleeping on the hard ground. And soon fell asleep. In his sleep, Zhou Lin felt someone stealing his gaze. Until the knocking on the door woke him up, Zhou Lin wiped his eyes and opened the door. While sleeping, Zhou Lin locked the door. After the door opened, Oshima smiled and said, "You slept long enough this night." In Zhou Lin's room, it was quite dark, so when he first came in, he turned on the light. When he woke up, he really didn't know how long he had slept. How long did I sleep? It should have been 7 hours. It's already 7 p.m. now. Zhou Lin stretched lazily and said, "I've slept for so long." However, as soon as this person calms down, it's easy for them to fall asleep. Oshima admits this statement. "I have never slept so comfortably as you." Zhou Lin nodded and said, "This is behind enemy lines. It's strange if you can sleep well." Oshima said, "I've prepared the dishes. Let's go eat." Zhou Lin remembered something and took out a small bag from his body, handing it to De Dao. "What is this?" Zhou Lin smiled and said, "How long has it been since you received the funds?" Oshima was stunned for a moment and thought for a moment before saying, "I came over 3 years ago and gave me 100 yuan. I spent 55 yuan to buy this house. I also spent 10 yuan to decorate it. I also bought all my belongings. On the first day of my business, I only had 10 yuan on me." Zhou Lin asked, "How is business?" Not bad. I can earn up to 10 fiat coins every day. I can earn 10 francs a day and 300 francs a month. That's quite a lot. I can't say that either. Every month, I have to pay 100 fiat coins to the gang. My living expenses are 100 fiat coins. If I can save it, it's only 100 fiat coins. If there are unexpected situations, I won't be able to make any profit. Zhou Lin pointed to the cloth bag and said, "Your budget is 1,000 fiat coins, plus 300 yen. Oshima opened the small cloth bag and took out the Japanese yen after looking at it. "This thing is dangerous, and if someone sees it, it will cause me trouble," he said. Zhou Lin didn't understand. "Since that's the case, just give more fiat currency." "You don't understand. These money are of great use." "Oh. Can you speak? Anyway, you will also follow my path in the future, I'll tell you." "Thank you." Oshima whispered, "These money are used to buy people." Zhou Lin's heart moved, but his expression remained unchanged. "Buying people. Can't we use fiat currency?" "Of course fiat currency works. For the past 3 years, I have been using fiat currency. However, Japanese yen is even better. Those who have children or relatives in the empire have to pay a price to exchange fiat currency for Japanese yen and then hand it over to their relatives for use." Zhou Lin pretended not to know. Qingdao can remit Japanese yen to Tokyo. Qingdao is fine. What is that place? It's an imperial territory. Shanghai is not. The nationalist government controls it and strictly controls the free remittance of foreign currency, especially the Japanese yen. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Tracking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Tracking. Zhou Lin understood and said, "Isn't the Japanese yen very high on the black market?" Oshima extended his thumb and said, "Smart person. The official price is 1 to 2 fiat currency to Japanese yen. But on the black market, it's 1 to 1. It's a whopping double. If you have any extra Japanese yen in the future, you can go to the black market and make a profit. Make a profit in the future. Shanghai is about to be occupied by the Japanese. As long as the Japanese occupy Shanghai, the Japanese yen will circulate. The exchange price is not as high as this." However, Zhou Lin still pretended and said, "Then I need to keep more Japanese yen. Dinner is even more abundant than lunch." 2 people drank 3 bottles of baijiu until Oshima lay down first. Since his travels, Zhou Lin has discovered a problem, which is that his alcohol tolerance has increased. "In the evening, I drank a bottle and a half of baijiu, about half a kilogram. However, he still did not feel drunk. You know, Zhou Lin of the last generation drank only 8 liang of baijiu at his best. And in this lifetime, the pathogen only has a tolerance for half a pound of alcohol, and drinking too much makes one drunk. But now Zhou Lin doesn't know how much he can drink." Zhou Lin helped Dao to his room, took out a straw mat, spread it out, made a blanket and pillow, and then helped Dao lie down. It's good that Oshima doesn't get drunk after getting drunk. After Zhou Lin came out, he returned to his own room and began to lie down. In a strange place, Zhou Lin was particularly careful. Zhou Lin felt that Dao was pretending to be drunk. Especially Dao really wants to intoxicate Zhou Lin, who can be considerate. One person is lurking behind enemy lines, and the other is someone who comes to meet up. As soon as they meet, they strongly advise drinking. This motive is impure. Don't say anything about deep feelings. Does Zhou Lin have feelings for Dao? The first time 2 people meet. That means that Dao is keeping something from Zhou Lin. So Zhou Lin pretended to be confused and believed that Dao was drunk. However, Oshima also believes that Zhou Lin is similar. As Zhou Lin left Dao's room unsteadily, Dao opened his eyes. He looked at the roof and listened to the commotion next door with his ears. It wasn't until snoring came from next door that the Dao confirmed that Zhou Lin was asleep. A caddy and a half of baijiu will make you drunk. After waiting for another 10 minutes, the big island climbed up. He moved a table in the room and leaned against the partition wall. Afterwards, Oshima stepped on the table. In this way, his head has reached a height of 2 meters. The Dao touched it. Found a brick. This brick is movable. It can be pulled out. The Dao pulled out a brick and leaned his eyes towards it. Through that brick hole, the Dao saw the situation next door. Sato is sleeping on the ground. The blanket slanted over Sato's body. After seeing it, the Dao put the brick back. Gently get off the table and move it back to its original place. The Dao sat down and rested for a while. I just left the door and arrived at the restroom. There are 2 rooms in the backyard of Oshima, a utility room, a kitchen, and a toilet. The toilet is built in the east corner of the yard, which is a triangular area. After arriving at the toilet, the Dao stepped on a large stone and climbed onto the roof of the toilet. On the top of the roof, there is a thick branch of a big tree extending. The branches and roof are only 1 meter high. Oshima's hand grabbed the branch, flipped over, and climbed onto it. The Dao's body is too heavy. The branches are shaking. But it still managed to hold on to the big island. The Dao climbed forward along the branches and reached the tree trunk. When it reaches the tree trunk, it becomes much more stable. The Dao looked at his small courtyard and found no abnormalities. He finally let go and got down from the tree. After landing, the big island walked towards the left. Just as the body of the big island disappeared, someone quickly passed through the big tree on the roof of the toilet and fell to the ground. This person is Zhou Lin. The sound of the Dao drawing that brick was heard by Zhou Lin. You should know that Zhou Lin's spiritual attributes have reached 1.5. More than 50% of the average person. The Dao peeked and Zhou Lin pretended to sleep soundly. Zhou Lin knew that the Dao's actions indicated that he had taken action. Sure enough, Zhou Lin heard the Dao leave his room. I heard that the Dao went to the restroom again. Afterwards, I heard the sound of big island grabbing branches. At this moment, Zhou Lin stood up. When he left the door, he heard the footsteps of Oshima outside the wall. Zhou Lin followed the path of the big island and chased after it. After walking for half an hour, the big island arrived at a place. This place is a small bungalow. The Dao stood in front of the bungalow, making the sound of a cat meowing. At this moment, a person came out of the room. This person's body is hiding in the darkness. Zhou Lin couldn't even see his specific situation. The person saw the big island and asked, "You have a signal in the afternoon to invite me here. What's up?" Oshima said, "Help me check someone." "Where's the information?" "No, I only have a few photos of him. It's in this camera and I didn't have time to develop it. Could you please investigate the situation of the people in the photos after they are developed?" "Okay. Just have a photo. Have you encountered any trouble?" "No. Someone has been sent up to connect with me, I need to be careful with the key points." "I see. Then I'll help you check. If it's from our Central Intelligence Bureau, I'll definitely recognize it at a glance. If it's from the Military Intelligence Bureau or the Second Department, it's more troublesome. I brought you 300 yen this time. 500 fiat coins. That's not troublesome. Those people from the Military Statistics Bureau or the Second Department can get through with money. Come here tomorrow night and get the result report. Please bring the photos and money over." "Okay. You're always so careful," Oshima sighed. "The careless people have rotted into soil." Oshima walked forward and handed the camera and money to the other person. He said, "If this person's situation is true, then it's up to you. Your friend at the theater headquarters should take action." "No problem. He said that as long as he has money, he can help. However, the price for a combat plan is relatively high, and he only needs US dollars. Some of their families are going to the United States. Oshima said, I will report this situation upwards. It shouldn't be a big problem. I also have a request. If I need to contact my friend to come up with a combat plan, I need 3,000 yen. Oshima's mouth trembled and he said, as long as the intelligence is accurate and secure, everything is fine. Okay. Let's first consider the first matter and investigate the situation of the person who took the photo. After speaking, the dark figure retreated into the room. Oshima shook his head and turned to walk towards the way he came. After the Dao returned to the yard through the big tree, he immediately went to his own room. At the first moment, he moved the table to look at the hole on the wall. Through that hole, the Dao saw that Zhou Lin was still sleeping. After patting his chest, Oshima said, I am still very clever, with 2 high martial arts skills. 2 bottles are upside down. The Dao, who was relieved, got off the table and moved it back to its original place before taking off his clothes and getting into the quilt on the ground. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. See tracking again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. See tracking again. The next morning, Zhou Lin arrived at the front store from the backyard. The busy time for pork stalls is around 7 a.m., from 11 p.m. to 12 p.m., and before 5 p.m. in the evening. It's past 10 o'clock in the morning and no one is coming to buy meat. Seeing Zhou Lin come out, the Dao said, if you have free time, why not go to the restaurant for breakfast tea? Zhou Lin looked at his watch and said, it's past 10 o'clock, do you still have morning tea? Yes. On the main street, there is a restaurant run by Lao Guang. The morning tea is from 6 to 11 o'clock, and the evening tea is from 6 to 10 o'clock in the afternoon. The restaurant makes very good snacks, you can go and try them. Zhou Lin said, why don't you come along too? I'll treat you. No way. I can't go. I'm in the store all the time except for the hour at noon. Zhou Lin nodded and said, I understand. How about I bring you takeout? Oshima smiled and said, this method works. I'll keep it for lunch. Zhou Lin walked out with a smile. Oshima said the direction and walked in the direction indicated. Just after Zhou Lin left, the Dao arrived at the gate and immediately a thin man walked over. Oshima asked, did you see his portrait clearly? I see it clearly. I already know each other. Okay. Just follow him from a distance and see where he's going. Contact someone. Remember these, just come back and tell me. I'm going. After speaking, the person quickly walked towards Zhou Lin's direction. The Dao looked around and turned back to the meat shop. Zhou Lin walked all the way without stopping or talking to anyone. He knew that Oshima's request to come out and have morning tea had a bad heart. I think I want to see where Zhou Lin will go and who he will interact with. As long as Zhou Lin comes into contact with people. So, Oshima will investigate that person until their identity is found out. Don't say that Oshima doesn't have this ability. Yesterday afternoon, he secretly took a photo of Zhou Lin with a camera, and at night he handed it over to someone to investigate Zhou Lin. So, Zhou Lin doesn't want to cause trouble this time. After leaving the street corner, Zhou Lin continued on. However, during the transition, Zhou Lin made a few gestures. On the side of the street outside, there is a shoe polishing stall. The vendor is the squad leader. The captain saw Zhou Lin walking out and also saw Zhou Lin's gesture at the corner. He immediately closed the stall. I went to the corner of the street. Behind the corner, there was a car. As soon as the platoon leader got on, he ordered, drive to the Lao Guang restaurant. The driver started the car and drove down the street. The squadron leader was inside the car and changed into a new outfit. Passing by a telephone booth, the platoon leader jumped down and made a phone call. After making the phone call, he returned to the car. Before Zhou Lin's mission, the team leader, squadron leader, and Zhou Lin sat together to discuss the deployment of this operation. The platoon leader set up a stall during the day and guarded outside the street corner. Additionally, there is a vehicle cooperating with the squadron leader. The captain is waiting at the Lao Guang restaurant. This is not a coincidence, but rather through analysis. If there is a decent restaurant near Zhangshu Street, Lao Guang restaurant can be considered one. Japanese people like to drink tea, and Lao Guang restaurants offer morning and evening tea. This is exactly what suits their taste. As a foreign Japanese, Lao Guang restaurant is his best choice. Even if the Dao doesn't recommend it, Zhou Lin can go directly. What are you going to do? Of course it's going to have tea. Even if you doubt it, you can't doubt all the people who drink tea. So, the captain stood guard at the Lao Guang restaurant, waiting for Zhou Lin to come and report the situation to him. The platoon leader called the captain midway. After receiving it, the captain arranged it. Just wait for Zhou Lin to come knocking. Halfway through Zhou Lin's walk, he found someone following him. Since Zhou Lin received reconnaissance skills, he has gained more than 10 years of experience as a reconnaissance personnel. The person tracking is not very covert. Zhou Lin quickly discovered him. And Zhou Lin confirmed that this person was sent by Oshima. Zhou Lin didn't have anyone to follow him, and since he didn't stop on his way and didn't have any contact with anyone, he couldn't see anything following him. So, Zhou Lin arrived at the Lao Guang restaurant. At the door, a waitress greeted her. "Sir, are you going to have lunch?" Zhou Lin said, "Don't have lunch, have morning tea." "There won't be no shortage of morning tea, will there?" "Yes. Yes. The end time for morning tea is 11 o'clock. There is still morning tea available now." "Okay. Give me a private room." The waitress is very happy, the price of a private room is much higher. Zhou Lin and the female server arrived at a private room. The female waiter opened the private room door and Zhou Lin walked in. Before entering the door, Zhou Lin saw a thin man watching from the side. "Sir, are you satisfied with this private room?" Zhou Lin nodded and said, "I'm not satisfied, that's it." "Order some tea." Zhou Lin ordered a pot of black tea and 4 more refreshments. A cage of braised wheat, a cage of shrimp dumplings, a plate of rice vermicelli, a bowl of century egg lean meat congee. "Just order these for now. If you don't have enough, add more." Quickly, the waiter brought up the tea and snacks ordered by Zhou Lin. "Sir, please use it slowly." After the guy came out, he saw a thin man staring at the private room and asked cautiously, "What are you doing?" The person quickly said, "I have breakfast tea. Do you want a private room? If so, I'll open it for you." When that person heard this, "Where did I get the money to open a private room? Anyway, I've already seen it, there's only one person in this private room. This person only ordered tea snacks for one person to eat." Explain that this is a person. It's the same whether you look or not. It still needs to be seen. By the way, you can see this private room door at the entrance. Then I will stand at the entrance. As long as someone enters or exits, I can see it. So, the skinny man became a volunteer doorman. Zhou Lin's private room door closed and he told the staff not to be disturbed. Then he bolted the door. Then, Zhou Lin arrived at the window. The window was open, and Zhou Lin stretched out his head and saw the captain outside the window of the adjacent private room. These 2 private rooms in this restaurant are the assault department, which means there are no private rooms or rooms around them. Talking in these 2 rooms will not be heard by people in other private rooms. And this private room is on the 3rd floor, and the 2nd floor is the kitchen. The 2nd floor is noisy, with hot air constantly rising. People on the 2nd floor cannot hear what is being said on the 3rd floor, no matter how loud they are. Considering that being exposed outside the window would be seen by people outside, the captain and Zhou Lin huddled at the windowsill, talking. The captain asked, "How is the situation?" Zhou Lin replied, "That's a pork shop. The owner of the pork shop is a Japanese spy. Does he have any doubts about your identity?" "There is suspicion, but he is not sure. There is a person he sent downstairs right now. That person followed me from the pork shop to here," Zhou Lin said. "Should measures be taken?" "No need. This person is Xiaoxiami. I don't know who he is yet." End of this chapter.